we're going to have a quick rundown. Of course, we're playing Decisive Campaigns Ardennes Offensive, so we're jumping to the other front of World War II than what XRG was playing with War in the East too. And we're going to do a quick brief because we're continuing from where I left off last time, streaming this for Slytherin. Just keep things flowing, but I want to get everyone updated. In September 1944, General Manfentels, I'm not sure, 5th Panzer Army was given the orders to stop Patton's Third Army advance at any cost, using the newly formed Panzer Brigades. In the first engagement near Lunéville, the 106th and 112th Panzer Brigades were badly mauled, so Hitler released the 11th Panzer Division, the 111th and 113th Panzer Brigades to stop and destroy the Americans who had nearly encircled Danzig, defended by the 551st Volksgrenadier Division. Yes, change that name from Infantry Division to Volksgrenadiers, and they're going to fight so much better, I'm sure. It's about the only thing that was really changed in many cases, but just to let you know what's going on with that. The German attack was directed against the advancing U.S. 4th Armored Division to smash the 35th Infantry Division on the southern flank and the U.S. 80th Infantry Division to the north. The ultimate goal was to make contact with a retreating 555th Volksgrenadier, but even the best plans could not survive contact with the enemy. Yeah, that's a good thing to try there, XDRG. Right. Okay, so that's giving you the situation, generally speaking. So we're supposed to be holding. We know that there are some enemy units around, and I'm not, because I'm taking that hold the front part seriously, going to be immediately pushing hard on the enemy, but we're going to be doing some movement here. First, let's get this infantry unit over to here. We're having problems with OBS and the new update. That could be an update situation that updated his settings, or maybe skipped an update, because there is an option to skip an update that I don't know. Yeah, I know you meant OBS 21st gen. So yeah, I don't have a good, like, this will solve it or something. Past life. Well, I don't know the metaphysical answers there. So yeah, I'm sure it's something, and I'm sure it's correctable, but you don't want to try to correct it in the midst of a live stream, that's for sure. You want to correct it some other time. Right. I'm a little worried about making too big of a stack, but I do think we will bring this here to hold, because we have two bridges, I should say, that these are only this thicker river, I believe, is only crossable at a river unless the AI plays a bridging card to get across. Decided to mute my mic just in a way. I had to make Windows forget the mic and reinstall the drivers. Yeah, well, I feel bad about that, because I know as a streamer that would be like, oh shit, what do I do, and really nerve-wracking. So we have some Pack 40s here with a little bit of AA backing them up, but what we're going to do here is we're going to move this flak unit down, because they have 1288s. Get them down here. Now this stream is crossable, though it does help on the defense. So we're going to move these guys down this way. 400 grenadiers. I'm not sure whether we should continue to push that way or come back this way. Now down here, I think I am going to move just the command staff back a little bit. Still keep it here in the area. And I'm going to move up the AA guns to however you pronounce this city. It was a great game. Still need to grab a copy of it. Yeah, Tony First Gen. This really is good because, on first blush, it might just look like, hey, an old, hex game with counters that you move around, and counters just have some generic value. I've not dug deep into any of this stuff to know how much I agree or disagree, but the unit is made up of 20 Panthers, this particular one, 10 times Nachtstruppen, 2 Muleteers to help move some stuff around, and one of these flak guns. And you can lose components of it, so it's not just a big single source operation here. Oh yeah, and the map itself as well, not just the looks of it, but we can come in and look at the hex, and it varies with effects, including heights, the officers, and what's going on. This is really a well done game. It is, and I've not played any of the Decisive Campaign games before this. I know it's a series, so I know they've changed the scale a bit for this game. I don't know how well it stands up versus earlier incarnations, but I do like what I'm seeing and would love to see maybe just it's already done. Again, I can't comment because I don't, in any intelligent way, have not looked at any of the other ones, but I could really see playing this, any of the fronts of the war at any time period with this particular system would be good for the scale. Right. Now, cards. This is something that's fairly new to me. You realize that I go back to at least the 70s in wargamings, and we didn't have these, but I can sort of see that these cards are in essence just in some ways reinforcement type choices or opportunities. So we have 10, they're calling it political power right now, I believe, for this. We have 10, so we're going to grab another, and this is the only unit, an artillery piece, which we can only really bring it in up here, so we'll do it here, I think. Like its place. So now we have another artillery piece here on the map, 1,605 millimeter guns, and some Russian 722 millimeter guns, and 752 millimeter Russian guns too. So captured Russian guns. And I remember years ago seeing a photograph of the artillery park, which just means where you're placing all the artillery of the Hermann Goering division, after one of it, collected equipment after one of it defeated, and it had a lot of captured. The Hermann Goering division was using, at least at the time of its capture, a lot of other captured earlier or whatever artillery pieces. So the Germans are using now. I still not, and I do look into these things, and I don't know if any of you out there know this. Actually know and can point to some facts, whether the Germans were just using captured artillery stock, ammunition, or whether they were producing their own Russian calibered ammunition. I just don't know that as a fact or not. Whether it's in rifle caliber, which we know they used huge amounts of Soviet rifle caliber units. Okay, and we also have a fuel card here, and fuel can both be an issue locally, as in, in one particular area, do we have, a supply line, but also generally. And so I think early on, I want to continue to play some of these just to make sure we have fuel points coming. We may look at supply here. So those are the only two cards at that level. But let's look over here. Okay, we have currently 10 command points, get 12 per turn. Walter Kruger. We could do visit the front, but I don't know that there's any good reason for him to do that now. Yeah, I think all of our commands have just 10. So I think we're going to wait, maybe scrap together some units where we can. Or a new SSD and Amazon F that up too, had to wait a week. The refund, I hear you. That's a problem. That is a problem. Okay, so they can be coming down around here or across the bridge. I think we're going to hold there for the moment. I think we will. Okay, that I think fired earlier playing. Yeah, I think we're going to let this current deployment stand for the moment. Okay, weather prediction. Well, currently it's missed, so we're not getting any air cover, but we're also not getting any air attacks. Okay, and we have 80 victory points currently, which a minor victory, and I would be quite satisfied with a minor victory, quite honestly. No losses for us last turn. We got 2 more supply drop and truck column. Right. Now there, obviously. Here, which we have 5 Jagdpanzer 470 LAs. I'll cut. And some infantry there. What I think I want to do is move up. These are my reconnaissance troops. Okay, we found the enemy there. So we're going to withdraw back to here because we don't need to engage bunch of tanks with some reconnaissance forces. Put these guys down that way. I think we're gonna, because not that these are planes, but it's elevation a bit. I don't know that they're going to try to push through down here hard coming. So I think we'll do this. We're going to move up here to hold the bridge a bit. Yeah, theoretically, they very well may be able to come up and throw a pontoon bridge across. Now I'm just going to use a little bit of our supply. And just with this one unit at the moment, we're going to see if we get any effect, or positive effect. We are getting some positive effect of taking out some of their forces just to weaken them, keep them a little off balance. Well, and it's been a long time since I've really read into the Battle of the Bulge and the reaction. If I'm correct, and I have not played the grand campaign of this, but if I'm correct, this is we're trying to block off Patton's very successful move of taking his forces that were facing the Germans and turning them and moving along the front of the enemy and trying to push north up to try to cut off the Battle of the Bulge, while Montgomery, who was north of the Battle of the Bulge at the time, is trying to push south. Now, Montgomery is a very deliberate commander. He isn't going to rush into things that he doesn't need to. And you have to realize, to a point, Britain by 1944, and this we're getting into 1945. Now this is earlier, but is an exhausted nation, and it just does not have the forces to push too hard, too fast, and they are very exhausted. And Montgomery is dealing with that, in my opinion, and not just delaying things because he's dragging his feet or whatever. And I think it's a reality of the situation, and he understands. Although this does have these infantry guns and some mortars that can be used as indirect units, this is mainly a Panzer Grenadier unit, so we're going to move these guys here. Probably not have too much of effect if these are all tanks. Okay, but it does sort of give us a little idea of the size of this force. Now, again, we're going to look over here at officers. We've now got 12 political power, or command power here. This will allow us to scrape together another unit. I figure we might as well do this early, this late. It comes right in onto the HQ. Yeah, we have an undo button with this. I don't know that there is. I did not mean to move this one. I thought I was on the other unit. Oh well. I like undo buttons because I know it can allow cheating, if you will, but this was truly a misclick. Oh well, I guess we'll live with that for the moment. We can bring him back. That's what I'm going to bring up. And we'll come over here and I think, yes, we can scrape together another unit. Okay. This time we will make sure that on this get some Volksgrenadiers here. Up to the front. Deliberat's a nice way to put it. Well, I really do think so, because if, now I'm a huge Patton fan, don't get me wrong. It goes back from the old George C. Scott movie days of watching that as a kid. But I've read Montgomery's book on the history of warfare, so I think I sort of understand him. When you get a general like that who writes a very thick book on literally going, the whole history as it incorporates of warfare. So you get him looking and talking about the whole history. You sort of kind of get a feel for the guy a bit. And part of the way Montgomery is going to win a battle is by not losing it. And so by that, I mean, why be dashing about like Rommel when you can go, hey, we got a good defensive position here at Alamein. We're going to reinforce it. We're going to bring up supplies. We're going to bring up even more supplies and fuel and get ready. And, the enemy are attacking. They decided to attack. Okay, hold them off. Okay, we defeat them. Okay, now let's start this huge artillery barrage on all enemy positions that we've been spotting out and just go for it and just overwhelm them. And yes, Montgomery readily, if he was Patton, would have pushed harder, eaten up more of Rommel's retreating units, if not all of them, potentially, and definitely scrape up most. I mean, they got all of the walking Italian units in the bag, but there was some motorized Italian units that escaped from that, and units, rear area units that were back at Tobruk or wherever else that were able to be evacuated and get out in good order. Rear area troops, sure, but still get them out that had he pursued hard wouldn't. But Montgomery knew that the war in essence was won already, because there was still the fighting to do, because the U.S. was in, and they had done the initially he knew of the planning, at least in the broad strokes, the planning of the torch and the timing of the torch invasions into North Africa. And then once those had happened and pursuing it, it's sort of like, the war is going to be won, let's not screw this thing up now. So there isn't the need for that hard push on things. And so that's sort of the kind of thing that I looked at with Montgomery. And he's playing the right role at the time. And his one big mistake, even though it was well planned and reasonably well supplied, was of course Market Garden. That was his big failure, and I don't think somebody with a Rommel dash kind of thing, a Patton or whatever, would have moved the armored forces up along the roads significantly faster or better. I think it was they were slowed, here and there a bit by enemy fighting, and sort of that it was just a bridge too far. I think in planning. Yeah, and that's what so I really think that is the situation. This game looks like Shut Up. Oh, it's I would say, well, I have not played Shadow Empire. I've watched a bunch of it. It looks good, but I really like the way this works. Needed a set piece battle, even so he utterly failed with Market Garden because his ego. It's Market Garden I would evaluate as being just too ambitious. Had it been two bridges, I know, it's the movie The Bridge Too Far, based on the book. Airborne warfare Yeah, had you, instead of having, really sort of, put the American airborne forces in with the British, and secured that area stronger, better, faster, and just plowed through, concentrate your airborne forces instead of trying to secure a chain of events, might have changed that. But that's a big guesswork on my part. So we've got some extra forces. We are seeing some forces down here. I'm going to move this staff back to here. I'm going to move these guys. There's 4-pack boys. Not letting me well, so this is uncrossable as well. It's still uncrossable. I still, I see objectives, trust me here, but I still see this as essentially a defensive operation. I'm wondering if I should be holding them more forward here. We'll see how this goes. And I've not played this scenario before or anything like that, so I'm still just finding out about that and this, and I'm sort of save it to play with you guys here for the first time. Yes, we have 10 more political power. We could do more fuel. Don't know if we really. Well, what I think we'll do is we don't really have any more combat units. We don't have a bridge to repair. Air is not usable right now. I think we're going to just pursue a bit more supply. Okay. I'll, okay, we'll just do that to keep supply flowing, coming in up here. Okay. Down here. Type this afternoon is still missed. Okay. No losses so far here. This might be a good place to try to set up a defense. Now we're going to again use my reconnaissance force to very carefully move in. Now there might be some forces in the town, I don't know, because it is misty. We can see that, in multiple ways. and very well could be hiding in there, and I don't know. But I'm going to probe. And there isn't. Okay, so we know there isn't any forces right there. This is something of a good defensive line there, I think. So let's not risk our, well, no, let's just say not risk our forces too much. Yeah, I'm trying to keep the objectives in mind here. Okay, we found the enemy. Good. We need to know where the enemy is. I think we're going to let them keep this town. I'm not saying that that is for sure the best option, but it is an option. Move up there. Okay, they are in the town. So that would have just been a bit of a fight that might not have gone so well. Think of anything right now. Nice 88s would make good coverage. Now I don't want to stack everything right there. Just overstacking artillery single point can be a problem. That's going to, and we may need to shift some more forces down. Let's keep our HQ somewhat forward. Let's bring up artillery as well this turn. I think we'll do that. Pretty okay. Well, we're going to move it up just because some of the guns have different ranges, especially these infantry guns are a bit shorter range. But I think we will put artillery on this. Just do about it, make them a little more nervous. Yeah, let's do that as well here, since they're right across the way from us. Okay, now down here, got this unit a bit reinforced. Let's move these guys. This is the core. I'm going to move the core headquarters back. What I'm thinking of doing is moving a few more of these forces south down to here eventually. So that way we can get these guys down here, because I don't want them to turn my flank around the south. Okay, so we, any cards we want to play here? Don't know that we could, we know we don't, we will when we get another 12. We'll probably see about scraping together some more troops. Don't know that our morale or anything is overly low. Not being pushed hard. I'm always sort of reluctant to play some cards just because I don't know when to play them. I guess maybe that's the point. So again, to sort of analyze, I don't know that there's a good reason to push from the north down here. I understand, trying to create a pocket, but I'm expecting hammer blows to come, and I'd rather be in good shape when they fall. Okay, see their artillery moving some tanks around. They're coming up. The artillery themselves. Now let's see, that's a little just putting too much in one hex. And going, okay, yeah, we lost some Vulture Grenadiers, some stuff from what to artillery losses. It's likely. Okay, night turn. Yeah, it's maybe when I should have been moving, but well. This is just very light artillery and some tank destroyers. Forces. Probably the best with those. Looks like they've sort of fallen back there. Yeah, I think I'm going to risk sort of being in the open here with these guys. Just in the hopes that they don't come busting on through here while we're shifting forces around. Use them or lose them cards. Yeah, that's true. I mean, we have the cards. They're not going to disappear. It's the points. And we can play all the... I don't think they're... well, it may be a theoretical maximum, but I don't know if we're going to get anywhere near the maximum command points. So if we know we're going to do an offensive, we should see about picking some of those. Or if we know that some place is likely to be hit hard, do that. So yeah, So you use the lesser waterways as barriers. Are they frozen over? Why not establish on the high ground? Okay, well, the high ground is a good option. I am not absolutely sure which, and hey guys, I'm not the greatest expert on these games. I'm a player like you. I play a bunch of different games. I sort of take my skill from experience from many different games, but I'm pretty sure these are impassable. These rivers here, unless at a bridge, or if there's a fording point, which I think would be marked on the map, or if because there are cards that have, put a new bridge. So we might have the enemy do that, but otherwise, I believe they are impassable. The smaller ones are not as impassable, but they do take up a lot of movement, I believe. So, and they're definitely good defensive positions. So they might come here. What I was sort of worried about here is if they decide to try to push up and around, if they could get across here, because and not that wouldn't be a bad position. Yeah, let's move these guys here as a reserve. And so what I'm trying to do is just create situations that will be favorable on the defense and hopefully do well with that. Again, let's look here, 16 points. Yeah, because we scraped together a unit already. Points. So one of these that had the points and the ability to scrape up another unit. But I very well could be wrong about that. Right clicked on these, okay, down here. No, I guess not. Oh, here we do. Okay, but yeah, but that's, we only have 4 now, so it'll be a while before we can see about putting some more weakish units, but still. Yeah, one thing, and I'm not going to in any way say that an XRTG, I was watching some of his stream just previously on War in the East too. He clearly knows War in the East 2, the game mechanics, better than I do. But I've often wondered, we were seeing his Italian and Romanian forces just get overwhelmed by Soviet attacks. I've often wondered, and this goes back to, this counteroffensive at the Stalingrad that the Soviets busted through those lines, that whether, that those forces just are too weak to stand on their own against a determined Soviet attack. I've often thought that if they were to some degree intermixed with German forces, that might be a good thing, but there may be command and control reasons why they couldn't, or as we can see here, we can come here all the way around, or we can cross here with this stream. So we're just, cross there. These guys are going to come to here. So yeah, these are crossable, but then I think we will sort of move to the heights here. Give them anti-tank guns. And you do have to worry a bit about, because I am looking at this terrain in my movement path, of having a unit fired on as it moves, and they definitely will do that. damaged a truck. Now, I don't know, quite honestly, just don't know whether if I combine these two artillery in a single barrage or do them separate, if they have a greater impact or not. And so, from my understanding, all this is taking up is supplies, which is an issue, but like I say, is an issue. But pounding the enemy a bit, especially when we see it all sort of stacked up there, is sort of a juicy target to hit. Okay, we've got 20 Panthers, 21 Panzer IVs. No, we're not going to attack out. I think we're going to move the Panzer IVs. Some mechanized forces. We don't have good artillery in this area. I think some of the longer range guns can strike down here. Now, also do note with these units, let's see. Yeah, sometimes you'll see some the schwer infantry Geschütz, 150 millimeter guns. These are the grills are the with the mounting on the Czech tanks. But these shorter range infantry guns, if you have a unit that sometimes you have some of these and you have some howitzers, if the range is too far, you won't get the support of the 150s. You'll just get the howitzers. So you have not necessarily the full effect if you're sitting way back and using some of your longer range guns to fire down here. Certainly they may be able to, some of them may be able to hit, but not all of them. See videos on Stalingrad battle, in which is very informative. Those Axis allies were seriously underarmed and over. Oh, absolutely. And hello, Sean Dorsel. I hope I'm getting that right. Pronounced reasonably right, or Dorsai, I guess. Dorsai, that isn't an L, it's an I. Sean Dorsai. Yeah, no, I have watched some of his Stalingrad stuff, and I go back to watching the old World at War series from the 1970s, or is it the 1960s? Wow, that's a long time ago. Very good series, though a bit outdated now. Let's move you into town just for the fun of it. Won't be in that town, but up to here. Yeah, they were, and there's lots of reasons for that. And yes, the Germans were in Stalingrad, at least at stages of it. Oh, we've almost won. Just one more division to Stalingrad, and we got the town. Let's just do that now. And so they withdrew, and they realized the Romanian, the Hungarian, and the Italian forces just weren't going to be that effective at assaulting Stalingrad. That I think the German High Command realized, and the German High Command also didn't expect a major counteroffensive. They thought that the Soviets were in a much weaker position. Obviously, they were wrong, but that's what they thought. And so my solution to Stalingrad, of course, is not to attack Stalingrad, or not to until you've encircled it enough and got across the Volga and cut off their resupply, then maybe start plowing into it so that they can't resupply it. But generally speaking, though, is not necessarily on a well, it depends on your scale of your hex. But, if you're going to have a hex and have two divisions in there in a single hex, sure. You're going to have like a German division and an Italian division, or a German division and a Hungarian division, and do that way. So you see there, more likely the using the Axis allies as supportive elements to primarily German defensive units is how I would have tried to utilize, and how I try to utilize when I play Eastern Front war games. Instead of expecting them to hold off against the Soviets or to effectively attack against the Soviets, to use that. Now, I do believe here, just from playing the game, we do have obviously hex elevation differences here. You mentioned hold the high ground, partially because this is a victory hex here in the town, but also it does seem to hold better in towns than just because you have the high ground. Here. So that's sort of what I'm doing, is trying to hold the towns instead of holding, well, that might not be a bad position. But as it was pointed out before in the last video, I forget who was saying it, but to hold everything is to hold nothing. So yeah, I'm trying not to weaken my force. A few times in military history, we've seen such a misuse of Allied forces as in World War II, the Axis site. Yes, I would agree with that, Van Bishop, very generally. And not, I mean, and to an extent, yeah, because even when the Germans were the Allied forces to the Italians in the Italian, primary fronts of the Mediterranean, North Africa, Greece, and later in Sicily. Once you get to landings in Italy, it's becoming a German front. But there is not good Italian and German coordination, including in North Africa, in my opinion. Even there, so even when the Germans are the sort of quote-unquote junior partner, not that they weren't doing well, but you're talking misuse of forces. Yeah, even there. And there's a lot of in my opinion, there's a lot of valuable roles you could put those people to, but they just were never going to be capable of properly fighting what was then a modern war. Or try to be strong everywhere is to be weak everywhere. Yes, absolutely. So this is in essence my strategy here, with my placements. Just trying to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. We'll see if it works. Okay, again, I don't know of any cards. We do have there's 46 political points. So fuel, air support is currently canceled because of that. Minor depot. Class Kraftwagen column. Okay, so troops have arrived. 20 Truppen, 1 Panther, 1 Panzerskreck, 20 Volksgrenadiers with Stimmgewehr 44s, and a captured Jeep. These replacements should have been delivered to the highest level reachable. Okay, so it should be here or somewhere. Do we see, or is it here? Wanted to see if we saw a Willys Jeep somewhere now. That did get us some more reinforcements coming up. That's why the Schlieffen plan failed, changing the plan to be double envelopment instead of a weak left and a very strong right. Yeah. I would say the Schlieffen plan also failed because Schlieffen did not quite understand the effects of the railway was going to have. In the sense that, and I'm not a huge expert on it, but I have played a few war games, is the ability for France to use its rail system, but the inability of the Germans to use the rail systems that they were capturing in the time scale of the advance. Not meaning that they couldn't eventually, or at some point, which they did, get the the rails running, as it were, to move units, troops, reinforcements, supplies, whatever. And units and troops are two different things. Troops are just like reinforcements. Units are another they're cohesive unit on the field. Move them around by rail movement, and so that they were in essence, moving in a Napoleonic fashion, maybe very rapidly. They weren't motorized. No one was. You have the taxi cabs and trucks and buses that the French used out of Paris. Yeah, it's sort of an emergency scraped together motorization. But nobody's motorized in 1914 to any effective extent. So you have a walking army that's coming in, facing off an army that can use, and does to a degree, rail transport to deal with it. Now you have the opposite, in essence, situation. You have a rapidly moving motorized forces in 1940 facing off against forces that, although there are motor transport, de Gaulle has the first armored division in France, created a week or so before the beginning of Fall Gelb. So there are, to the best of my knowledge, there are either no or very few high level, like divisional scale units that are properly motorized in the French army. There are motorized units, a tank unit, and even then we also see how bad France handles a lot of those. In the idea that at times there, at least one incident, that they put the tanks, because they're slow and they burn a lot of fuel up, on rail cars and try to move them to one location, and have the fuel trucks go on the road, go to where they're supposed to go, but trains can't get to that. So the tanks are unloaded from the rail cars, but they can't move because they don't have the fuel needed, and the fuel's in some other location, and trying to get these things re-coordinated up. France doesn't do that well, but on a higher scale, if there are cavalry divisions, and I don't quite know how fast they're actually going to move, because cavalry strategically isn't necessarily any faster than infantry is strategically, and Stonewall Jackson shows that in the Valley campaign. His foot cavalry, as they were known, because they just walked fast, and it takes to strategically move horses is slow as infantry, generally speaking. Talk in detail more. Now, tactically, they can move very rapidly. That's different than strategically. So France's Britain's army is highly motorized in 1940, but the Expeditionary Army, the BEF, but France isn't in a strategic moving sense. So Germany is able to, obviously they don't follow the Schlieffen plan, very different plan, but they're able to execute their plan with rapidity that is surprising and shocking, but the Schlieffen can't do that. At least that's my evaluation of things. Hope this is all interesting to you while we're playing this here.